Bill, welcome back to the program. Always great to see you.
Really, is it, Spicer? Is it great to see me? Nobody says that to me in my real life,
Well,
only
you know
on
what?
TV
I
and
will.
stuff.
I
No,
will.
you're a
I
good
will.
guy. You're a good guy. But
Thank
thanks
you.
for
Well, you know
having me.
what? I was excited to have you on because there's two things. I'm at CPAC, whatever that was, 10 days ago. And the president says, Bill O'Reilly gave you the greatest compliment. He said I was the greatest president ever. And I thought, okay, I'm going to talk to Bill about this.
Because I heard O'Reilly last night say Donald Trump for the first 4 weeks is the greatest president ever in the history of our country. That was O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly is all right.
And then I remembered, wait a second, on December 13th, 2024, we're talking about your book, Confronting the Presidents, No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. And it's, by the way, the 20th bestseller of Bill O'Reilly. And I said to you at the time, what's it going to take? You're a historian, a journalist. What's it going to take? And you said, and I want to play the clip for everyone, but you said that, first of all, you told Trump, read the Grover Cleveland part. And then you said, listen, your voters gave you a mandate. Your supporters gave you the vision. Get the border under control, stabilize the overseas problems, and you'll be considered in the Reagan era. Right next to Ronnie, I'll make sure of it.
The president, Trump, called me and said, I just saw the documentary. It was very interesting. And I said, I sent you the book months ago. Did you read it? He read the portion about him, which I think is very fair, by the way.
I love it.
But he didn't go over the odds. As you know, the president's
Right.
not a big book reader. But it's interesting you're asking this question because it's right in sync with him. So he goes, well, what do I have to do to get in the upper echelons? And I said, well, the first thing you do is you should buy a mountain right next to Mount Rushmore and then just start the carving because they can't stop you. You can put your face right up there. Can't be on their mountain because there's no space, but get another mountain. But then I got serious and I said, listen, you did something that nobody else has ever done with the exception of Grover Cleveland. And believe me, his second term was the biggest disaster that could ever be. So you should read that chapter in the book so you don't fall into the traps that Grover Cleveland fell into. But I said, it's all about fulfilling a mandate to improve the nation. And you have a vision because the vision's been given to you by the people. But that your supporters gave you the vision. You don't need to go out of that vision unless obviously something happens that he has to react to. But if you can get the border under control, bring down consumer prices a bit, if you can stabilize overseas problems and push ahead like you did in your first term with real wages rising for workers, you'll be considered in the Reagan area. You'll be right up next to Ronnie because I'll make sure you are. The press, the corrupt media will never write the good things that Trump did in his first term. But he had a successful first term, and that's why he was reelected, because people were comparing Trump's first term to Biden's first term. There's no comparison.
So, Bill, what is it in 45 days that Donald Trump has done that's given you the assessment that you have now that he is among the greats, if that's true, if he's quoting you accurately?
Well, he's not quoting me accurately, but what I said was that he did more in his first 4 weeks than any other president, with George Washington would be second. So he took more and put greatest in there, which, it's okay with me. Look, Confronting the President on New York Times bestsellers for 6 months. So you want to quote from it, that's great. So the way I assess the Trump presidency is different than most people because I'm not a party person, as you know, and I'm not an ideologue. All I want is problem solving. That's what I want as an American citizen and as a journalist. So if you look at how Trump stormed in there, he had solutions to some vexing problems from day one. Most presidents don't. They don't think about that. They're thinking about staffing. They're thinking about where I'm going to live, what kind of sheets are they going to give me, what am I going to do for breakfast, that kind of thing. Not Trump, because he had been there before, big advantage. So he comes in there and he executes the border strategy very well, almost perfectly. And he conquers that quickly. Then he pivots into the economy, not as successful. You got to wait and see if your tariff vision is going to pay off. And that's about a 6-month wait. In the meantime, you're going to get hammered by your opposition. Some prices will go up. And so you're going to have to endure that. I don't know whether the tariff thing will work or not. I just don't. Ukraine, it looks to me in the short term that he will get some kind of ceasefire there. Even with all the Zelensky madness, all of that. His vision is he can deal with Putin. You're going to make Putin a deal. Putin will stop. Whether Putin reneges later, I mean, all of that, all Trump wants is to stop it now. And if they do sign a mineral deal with Ukraine, that'll be a very bold stroke for the USA. So that's where I am. And I'm watching him do this. And George Washington, was the leader in getting things done because he had to. There was no government. Most people don't even know that George Washington was in New York City. That's where his office was because they didn't have D.C. then. They didn't have a government then. They had no structure then. All they had was theory. And Washington had to carry it out. But he didn't do it merely as manic as Trump did his first 6 weeks.
But as I went back and played that interview with you on December 13th, I thought to myself, okay, you said that you got to get the border under control. The numbers in border apprehension, December 18th, 2023, there were 3,670 border apprehensions in the Del Rio sector. March 3rd, there were 43. I mean, that's box checked there. Then you said get the skirmishes under control, right? You just mentioned the mineral deal. I would put Gaza and Hamas in that kind of bucket as well, and then address the economy. So if he can actually do this, is he in the Reagan era of great presidents, or is he in like the top 5? We never really got into what that Reagan era was to find it, but is he on the precipice of top 5 or top 10 or top 15?
It's impossible to assess that, Sean, at this point in history. You have to see what the unintended consequences of his actions are going to be, because they all had that. Now, when Reagan took over from Carter, Reagan didn't act quickly at all. He had a horrible 2 years. He was shot, number one, almost died. And I wrote Killing Reagan, and then he's in Confronting as well. Well, Reagan didn't get off to a fast start at all. Once he was shot, it took him a year to recover from that. So the country was kind of just tottering. What Reagan did do was he brought a sense of menace to our enemies abroad. And that was big. So they didn't respect Carter. It was almost identical. Carter and Biden, foreign policy-wise, almost identical. The tyrants and the evildoers, like Putin, didn't have any respect for him at all. None. They just do whatever they wanted because they knew there wasn't going to be any accountability. Reagan a little bit different, and Trump a lot different. And that works to the advantage of Trump and the departed Ronald Reagan.
I've always maintained since the election that because Trump had 4 years out of office, he may have the most consequential second term of any president. Because when you have time to think and plan and plot, that you have an advantage. If you're just rolling into a second term, you keep the chief of staff, you keep the press secretary probably. I mean, and they'll cycle out. But that you just kind of keep going. January 1st becomes January 2nd. The 21st becomes the 2nd. I mean, you don't pause and say, today's my second term. You just keep going. Because he's had the opportunity, and not just him, but his allies, America First Legal, Heritage Foundation, America First Policy Institute, what he's doing in this first 45, 50 days is so well executed because they've been able to think about it. To your point about Reagan, there's a newness of the office that everybody has. But because he's been able to think, he has the right people, the right processes, and the right policies going into a second term.
Well, I agree and I disagree with you. I think his vision is good. And you're correct that he had a long time to think about it because he always knew he was going to run again. There was never a doubt.
Right.
But some of his people that he selected, I would not have voted for.
Like who?
Because like Bobby Kennedy Jr. Never in a million years would I. I wouldn't have voted for Hegseth. I want technicians in there, because I understand that President Trump's going to run the shows from the White House. So these department heads are not going to have any power. It's identical to what FDR did.
Wait a minute,
Identical.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Bill, but I don't understand. If they don't have any power and he's going to run it, then why does it matter if they're there or not?
Because I want better people to carry out the orders. I want more methodical people, dweebs or nerds. Okay? That's what I want. And because they're not going to have any power, they're going to do what they're told to do. And some of them are distractions, like Elon Musk. So if you look at this brand new department, DOGE, to cut out wasteful spending, which is spectacular in my opinion, really, really a good venture. But then you put a guy in charge of it who polarizes everybody and whose discipline is not government, so that he'll make imprecise statements. He'll say things that he can't back up, and that gets the whole thing wobbling. I would rather have some guy with really thick glasses, and all he does is look at ledger sheets, carrying out the DOGE orders.
But here's the difference, and I've been in this game, and listen. First of all, historically speaking, you hold a candle to no one. I mean, when you know every president back and forth. So historically, I worship at the O'Reilly altar here. But here's what I would say as someone that's been in the game, is that if the dude with the thick glasses and the green eye shades comes knock on your door and says, "Hi, I'm from DOGE," they go, "Get out." When Elon Musk calls and says, "Hey, it's Elon, I'm from DOGE," they're going to be like, "I got it. Come on in. Here are the keys. Where do you want to set up?" Power is access in DC. And if the guy with the green eye shades doesn't have the stature to get in the office, and that's why Jared Kushner was effective, I think, during the first term, as people knew. It's not that he was, he's a smart guy, but he was also the president's son-in-law. And when you got a call from Jared, you went, "Hut to," and "What do you need, sir? I got it. Here's the thing." Elon, I get it. I stylistically, there's some issues there. But I think that people wouldn't respond to the dude with the Coke bottle glasses.
Well, you might be right. You're making an excellent point. And you were there and I was not. But Trump is a pretty formidable power. You're going to disrespect one of his guys, even if he has thick glasses, and Trump hears about it.
No, I get it. Look, but here's the point. I see, and this is again where I was talking to someone the other day, and I think the analysis they put forward is true. You're either a peer or a staffer to him, right? And staff gets treated like staff, which they should. And peers are people that he respects, business people.
Look, I understand that. The power that Elon Musk brings to the Trump administration is enormous. And you're balancing that with distraction. So Let me give you a historical example. I don't even know whether President Trump knows this or not. I hadn't talked to him about it. I've been talking to him about issues rather than, wider stuff. FDR came in, all right? The country's a mess, just like Trump with Biden. Hoover blew it totally. The depression is deep-rooted now. People are angry. FDR is looking at this chaos. FDR had a short concentration span, just like Donald Trump. All right? FDR's passion was stamp collecting. That's what he concentrated on. FDR didn't want to hear about the Department of the Interior. He didn't want to hear about any of this stuff. He didn't want to analyze micro charts on the economy. So he brings in Harry Hopkins. I'm sure you've heard the name.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Hopkins is his big buddy, big pal. All right? And he goes, "Harry, you're running all of this stuff. You're running it. I'll tell you what I want. You do it. And then when it's done, you come back and tell me." So Harry Hopkins brings in these guys from Harvard and Columbia University, sets up a little squad, and runs all the departments and carries out what FDR's orders are. Nobody in the country knows who Harry Hopkins is. All right? He's not in the Oval Office with FDR with a 5-year-old kid bouncing up and down. All right? Harry Kudme was about 60 when he got the job. Harry Hopkins stayed all 4 terms, lived in the White House during World War II. He arguably was as powerful as FDR. Nobody ever heard of him.
Yeah,
And
and I get
that's
it. I think
how
the
it
deep
was
state.
run.
Yeah, I get it. I've been in and out enough times to know this is what happened the first time when President Trump was in office, where people pushed back. They knew who to behave. They knew they could obfuscate from or assuage and tell them,
Yeah,
"Hey, we're going to
sure.
put a PowerPoint." And Elon
Right.
scares the crap out of them. And I think they realize I better get it done because I don't want to get on the wrong side of this guy. You got to have somebody in there with gravitas. Maybe Harry
Okay.
Hopkins has, but I think somebody's got to
I'll
come in there and make them scared.
I'll take your point.
No, there's no
So
right or
that if
wrong. It's just
look, it's the way it works down there. But if I'm Trump, I say tone it down to Elon.
Oh, I agree with you on that. Stylistically, I think you and I are simpatico on this. I think that Elon's got to slow his roll on a couple things
Slow it
because
down.
there's lives at stake. We can all agree on the goal. But the other point, Bill, that I've made to a lot of folks is I have heard for decades, and you have too, the excuses on why we can't do
That's
this,
all
or
bull.
I need a study. And Alyssa Slotkin the other night, when she was giving the Dem response, said, I'd be glad to join with you. And my answer was, why haven't you done anything yet then? The politicians in Washington are great with the speeches. If it wasn't for Musk and Trump leading the way, obviously, we wouldn't be having this discussion about rooting out inefficiencies and duplicity and waste.
What if Kamala Harris were elected? I mean,
it would
have
be double.
Yeah, right. It would have been insane. It wouldn't be any of this. Wouldn't be any Ukraine. It wouldn't be anything. It would just be, oh, boom, we're going to spend more. Hey, if we go bankrupt, then we'll deal with it when that happens. Sure. The Democratic Party never, ever since FDR has been a party of constraint. They want to just spend money, and they justify it by saying, if you don't want to spend federal money, you're hurting people, you're a mean guy, you're killing babies, you won't research cancer, you're cutting entitlements. That's their game. That's what they play. And they buy votes doing that. They scare people. I mean, just last night, this idiot from Texas, Al Green, oh, they're going to cut Medicare and Social Security. Like, the guy's a liar.
Yes.
I don't even think he knows he's lying at this point. He's delusional. Green is. This guy looks like he's something out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this guy. I'm like, oh, what? So
with the cane.
Anyway, right. Trump just knocks these people off. But you make a good point that you put a guy like Elon Musk in charge of anything, everybody's going to pay attention.
Yeah.
And you're going to get big headlines, and Trump loves big headlines.
All right, so I've asked a lot of people their perspective on the State of the Union, and I get a lot of people who tell me loved it because they love Trump. I want you to give me the historical perspective, though. It was the longest by all measures. I get up until Carter, they were largely written. But I mean, in terms of substance and style, analyze it through that lens. Okay,
so it was too long, and the downside to that is Americans didn't watch it as closely as they would have had it been an hour. An hour 45 is really taxing it, okay? But Trump wasn't boring.
No.
But you had to have a frame of reference here to sit there for an hour and 45 minutes to listen to this. You had to be into the government. You had to be into that. So a lot of folks didn't get the gist. They didn't get the bigger picture. So the best, and it wasn't a State of the Union, you know that everybody calls it that, but it wasn't that. Right. It was just a congressional address. Here's where we are in the beginning of my term, and this is what I want to accomplish. And I will say this, if Donald Trump accomplishes 70% of what he wants to accomplish, he'll be on Mount Rushmore. I mean, maybe his head will be a little lower than the other guys, but he'll be there. Because the things that he wants to do would strengthen the nation. There's no doubt about that. And the Democrats have no other counter. They don't know how to solve problems. And Biden didn't care about solving problems, just didn't even try, which is why he's the second worst president ever. Trump keeps going, he's the worst. I understand the hyperbole there, but he's not the worst. James Buchanan is. So anyway, you're looking at a situation where Trump delivers this humongous address, and the people who are really interested hear it, and then they decide. And the decision is, let's give him a chance. I think that most Americans, even if you don't like Donald Trump, are willing to give him 6 months to a year to get this stuff done. Now, that doesn't count the fanatical Democrats, the hate Trumpers, the corrupt media doesn't count them, okay? But most of the folks, they're willing to give him some time. And that's good for President Trump.
You mentioned the shenanigans, antics of Congressman Al Green. I will tell you, I as a Republican, as a conservative, I was actually disappointed in the Democrats. I thought their response was weak and pathetic and sad, disrespectful. I actually thought they'd be better coordinated, and I thought to myself, wow, if this is the best you got, if your leadership can't put together a decent response, that's a problem. What did you think?
Well, number one, it was a huge victory for the Republican Party. The happiest guy in the room last night was J.D. Vance. Because you're right, the party looked hapless. I mean, that party's dissolving right in front of the nation. They have nothing. They have no leader. They have no solutions. All they have is they hold up a little sign, "We hate your haircut." That's what you got? Okay. And you got people like, and Trump was bear baiting them. He was tormenting them. Pocahontas this and look at that. And it worked because they got mean. And Americans don't like mean, generally speaking. And so they didn't applaud for Lake and Riley's mom and sister, for the kid who has cancer and gotten an SS badge. They couldn't be bothered to even acknowledge these people in a positive way. People noticed that. That was my lead story tonight on the No Spin News, the night of the speech. So while Trump actively tries to get under their skin, he succeeded big time. And that was, I think, the most important story of the night. He did so much damage to the Democrats, and they just played right into it.
They did.
Right into it.
All right. Speaking of playing right into it, what do you, I got this announcement. You got 20 now best-selling books, and now you're going on tour. And I'm thinking he's going to go on tour to talk about the book, to talk about this. But no, you're teaming up with Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith, who's had one heck of a week, by the way. That man schooled the ladies of The View. Live show Sunday, March 30th, 3 p.m. at the Westbury Music Fair. Tell us how did this happen, and what are you trying to do here?
Well, it's an experiment. As you may know, Sean, I produced the Trump O'Reilly History Tour, which was one of the most successful tours of all time in America. And I have a very good production company, extremely well. So I figured, let's do something different. Let's see if we get 3 strong points of view. All right. So you got Chris Cuomo, traditional liberal, Stephen A. Smith, African-American, kind of independent, but leans left, and O'Reilly, a traditional guy. So we'll get them right on the stage. All right. And hopefully we'll meld 3 different crowds into the theater. It's Westbury Music Fair, March 30th, Sunday, 3 p.m. Just go to BillO'Reilly.com. We'll punch you right over to the box office. But I thought it would be a lot of fun, and it would be a lot of laughs, and it could show people, look, you can disagree and still be friends and still be civil and have a good time, which we never see now, ever.
So are you streaming the two, or do you have to be in person?
You got to see the show in person, but I'm going to shoot it as
so
a possible.
We will be able to see it.
We'll see. It's more of a pilot situation.
I see.
So this could work big time on television.
Now, does Cuomo, I get Stephen A. Smith. I've watched him. I think, frankly, his commentary has been phenomenal, and I'm sure the dynamic between you guys is going to be great. But is Cuomo, does he buy into the I'm playing the role of the liberal, or does he say that he's a journalist? What role does he play in this construct?
Well, you can be both. I mean, they're not going in there to the show to be journalists. They're going in to be entertainers. This is entertainment. Okay. That's what it is. You don't pay to go to a theater and sit there. I'm telling people it's going to be better than Taylor Swift concert. That's how entertaining this is going to be. So
you're going to get Gracie Abrams to open up for you.
Yeah, what I expect Cuomo to bring to it is a sensibility of the left. Here's why they think the way they do. All right. And then Stephen A. Smith will bring a sensitivity from African Americans. And then I will be the guy that's basically ponging it back and forth. There are going to be 4 issues, and there'll be issues that everybody's talking about that week. All right. And I'll choose them. And then we'll have Q&A from the audience, which will be, crazy. And we'll have a good time. But I don't know whether this is going to work.
Oh, I think it will. First of all, everything that you touch
says that, but remember,
I know, but you look, Bill. You get like your books are bestsellers, your shows are bestsellers,
but that's
your
just
newsletters.
Me.
That's I think, but people trust that. This is sort of like a brand, and they go, if O'Reilly's doing it, it's going to be good. And I think you're going to bring the show.
Well, and that's nice of you to say. But the reason it's not a lock is because we are tribal now in America. This is new. And it came in with Trump.
I'm telling you, I think you're on to something, though. You're on to it. This is what people want to see. I think they do. I think people want to see a respectful decision, but not with people who actually have principle and who have a position, stake it out, but can actually engage in dialogue. And you know how to do that. You always do it on your show. You're respectful of your guests. You know history, so no one can run around you because you're going to fact check them in real time. So I think it's going to be a great thing. And I think that you're right. You've kind of got lightning in a bottle here. And I'm predicting that it's going to go on the road this summer. And just like Taylor, there's going to be a worldwide thing, and there'll be Kelsey brothers coming after you. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Stephen A. in those outfits, but we will have fun, and I appreciate the positive vibes you're sending, Sean. Thank you.
You bet. All right. As always, go to BillO'Reilly.com to check it all out. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Sean.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. What a great show. Next week, Brendan Carr, the FCC commissioner, on the crackdown on major networks, implementing the America First agenda. Got so much to break down with Trump and the tariffs and all the other stuff. So many updates. We look forward to seeing you back here on Monday. My newsletter came out today. Go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for it. It's absolutely free. Love myself a good VIP member. Until then, have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.